Jason Thompson wasn't just another 22-year-old college footballer. To his teammates, he was the backbone of their defense. Strong, reliable, fiercely loyal. To his college peers, he was respected, a bit intimidating perhaps, but known for his discipline both on and off the field. But to Rebecca, his 19-year-old younger sister, Jason was simply her protective older brother. Their connection ran deeper than typical sibling affection. After their parents died in a tragic accident when Rebecca was just 13, Jason had stepped up, becoming more than a brother. He was her father's mother and best friend combined. Every decision he made, every late-night game he played, was in some way for Rebecca. Rebecca, in contrast, was the embodiment of youthful energy. Her beauty was undeniable: long brown hair, expressive eyes, and an infectious laugh that could light up any room. She was popular at college, the kind of girl whose presence didn't go unnoticed. But unlike Jason, she wasn't disciplined or cautious. Her nature was more carefree, experimental, and drawn towards attention. A craving that slowly led her down a dangerous path. Their house, small but cozy, was where Jason found comfort amidst the pressures of college life. His football team, especially his close circle of 10 teammates, had become his second family. He often invited them over after practice sessions. At first, it was innocent Friday pizza nights, movie marathons, FIFA tournaments that ran until 3 a.m. The house echoed with laughter and camaraderie. And Rebecca. Whatever the social butterfly, blended seamlessly into this environment. Jason was proud of how well Rebecca got along with his friends. He believed in the unspoken rule. His friends were like brothers, and no one would ever cross a line with his sister. Why would they? These were people he trusted with his life on the field. Rebecca, in his mind, was safe. But as the weeks passed, subtle changes began to emerge. Changes Jason was too busy, or perhaps too trusting, to notice. It began with Brian. Brian was the team captain, charismatic, charming, a natural leader. He and Jason had been friends since their freshman year. When Brian was perhaps the only person Jason would consider an equal, when Brian started showing Rebecca more attention, Jason brushed it off at first. After all, Brian was trustworthy, so what if he laughed at Rebecca's jokes a little too enthusiastically, or found reasons to be around her when Jason wasn't looking? Jason ignored the discomfort rising inside him. But Brian wasn't alone. Rebecca's magnetism didn't stop at just one teammate. Slowly, other members of the team began finding excuses to stay back longer after practice, spending time at the house even when Jason wasn't around. What started as casual conversations with Rebecca turned into inside jokes she shared with them. They would glance at her when they thought no one noticed, little touches on her shoulder, laughter that lingered a little too long. Rebecca, flattered by the attention, encouraged it, perhaps innocently at first, but the attention fed something inside her. Each flirtatious interaction became a small victory, a thrill that escalated. This time, what Jason saw as harmless fun between friends and his sister was in reality something far more dangerous. Jason began to sense it, albeit faintly. He noticed Brian coming over even when there was no practice scheduled. He noticed his other teammates, guys who previously only came around for football talk, suddenly taking an active interest in Rebecca's life. They would ask where she was if she wasn't home. They'd laugh at her slightest jokes, their eyes tracking her every movement. When she entered the room, Jason felt the shift, but every time he thought about confronting Brian or anyone else, he stopped himself. He didn't want to seem paranoid. After all, these were his brothers. Rebecca's behavior, too, subtly changed. She began dressing differently around the house when the boys came over. Shorter tops, tighter. Her bubbly nature became more flirtatious. Jason noticed, but chalked it up to teenage rebellion, hoping it was just a phase. But it wasn't. What Jason didn't know was that his home, the one place he thought was safest for Rebecca, had slowly become the very trap he had sworn to protect her from. The football team's frequent visits weren't just casual hangouts anymore. They were opportunities. Opportunities for Rebecca to indulge in the attention she secretly craved and opportunities for his teammates. Across lines they never should have approached. And one night it finally happened. Brian was the first to make the move. The first time Brian kissed her, she didn't pull away. It happened late one night. Jason had gone to a team meeting, leaving Brian at the house under the pretense of waiting for him. Rebecca found him sitting alone in the living room, scrolling mindlessly on his phone. She teased him about getting bored, sat down beside him, and what began as playful banter slowly shifted. His hand grazed her thigh. She felt the adrenaline surge. Before she could overthink, Brian leaned in. Their lips met. It was brief, messy, wrong. But she didn't stop him. After Brian left that night, Rebecca sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling for hours, torn between guilt and excitement. She told herself it would stop, that it was a mistake. But the next day, Brian stayed back again. And the day after that, the line crossed once, became easier to cross again. And soon Brian wasn't the only one. Chris, the team's joker, always had Rebecca laughing. One night, when they were alone in the kitchen, he kissed her too. She didn't resist. One by one, her brothers, teammates, transformed from friends to forbidden lovers. Sometimes it was a stolen kiss, sometimes more, and each time Rebecca convinced herself she was in control. Each encounter made her feel alive, powerful. The danger of it, the secrecy, the thrill of getting away with it all became an intoxicating drug. At first, none of them knew about each other, but gradually whispers began, glances exchanged between Brian, Chris, and the others when they noticed each other sneaking out of Rebecca's room. Silent tensions grew in the team, but none dared confront one another. Perhaps it was guilt. Perhaps it was their silent agreement to enjoy the situation. For as long as it lasted, Rebecca, too, didn't realize how entangled she'd become. Each boy offered her something different. Brian was dominating and confident. Chris made her laugh. Sam treated her gently. Each interaction fed a different part of her, and she convinced herself that it wasn't wrong. As long as Jason didn't know. But the lies began catching up. One day Jason walked into the house unexpectedly early from practice. Rebecca, half-dressed, was sneaking Chris out through the back door. Jason missed them by seconds. He questioned Rebecca. Why was Chris here alone? Why did she look flustered? Rebecca brushed it off, claiming Chris had come by to borrow Jason's gym bag. Jason's gut twisted, but he said nothing. He wanted to believe her. The next weekend, Jason noticed Brian glancing at Rebecca during their team huddle. It wasn't a casual glance. It lingered a small smile, a spark of familiarity. Again, Jason felt it in his bones that something was off, but what could he say? Accuse his own captain? His sister? Meanwhile, Rebecca's web grew tighter. More reckless now, she'd meet two teammates in the same day, sometimes within hours of each other. She laughed at how easily she deceived them all, but deep down, fear gnawed at her. What if Jason found out? What if someone told him? But the thrill outweighed the fear. Until the night everything changed at a party hosted by Brian. Rebecca drank more than she could handle. Her inhibition slipped away in a drunken haze. She ended up in the bedroom with Chris yet again. What she didn't know was that Chris, eager to boast about his conquest, recorded short clips on his phone, moments of their intimacy, snippets that would later become her downfall. The next morning, Chris didn't think much about the videos. Drunk bravado had clouded his judgment. Scrolling through his gallery, he watched them and laughed, showing a few seconds to his roommate without Rebecca's knowledge. It was reckless, disrespectful, but in his mind, no harm was done. Until Chris's intoxicated one evening accidentally uploaded the video clips to the team's private college chat group. It wasn't intentional, but the moment it happened, it was irreversible. Within minutes, the group exploded. Messages flooded in, at first confusion, then shock, then silence. The video showed Rebecca clearly, her face unmistakable, her voice, her expressions, and Chris and others. The snippets weren't long, but explicit enough to erase any doubt. The chat group wasn't just players anymore. Other students had been added over time. Within half an hour, the video had been forwarded to multiple college groups by morning. Rebecca's private life was everyone's entertainment. By the time she found out, it was too late. Rebecca woke up to dozens of missed calls, unread messages, and whispers outside her dorm door. Girls who once smiled at her now looked at her with pity or worse, judgment. She didn't understand until a classmate shoved the phone screen into her face. Her world shattered. She ran to her dorm room, locked herself inside, and broke down completely. The horror of what she saw, the realization of what was now public, suffocated her. The video, the comments, the jokes. She messaged Jason repeatedly, her hands trembling. "Please come home. Please call me. I need to talk." But Jason didn't reply. He was still at practice. His phone was switched off. Rebecca's mind spiraled. She called Brian, but he didn't answer. She called Chris. He hung up immediately. The teammates who once flirted, laughed, and craved her attention now avoided her like she was a curse. Her popularity had flipped into isolation overnight. She considered deleting herself from existence. Meanwhile, across campus, Jason remained oblivious. But everyone else knew. By the time Jason left practice, whispers followed him. His teammates refused to meet his eyes. The people he passed in the corridors cast uncomfortable glances. He noticed. He sensed something was wrong. But he didn't understand until he switched on his phone. The notifications were endless. Jason scrolled through the messages. "Bro, are you okay? Please don't blame us. We didn't know. Don't check the video, please." But Jason did. The video auto-played in the chat before he could stop it. What he saw couldn't be unseen. His sister, his Rebecca with Brian, with Chris, with others. His hands shook, his vision blurred, his mind refused to believe. He watched it over and over, hoping it was a sick joke, a fake, but there was no denying the truth. Jason felt his soul rupture. The teammates he trusted had touched his sister. The girl he protected had betrayed him. His house, his home, had become the stage for their betrayal. Something inside Jason snapped that moment, something primal, something irreversible. And Rebecca's desperate messages kept blinking on his phone, unanswered. But now, nothing could save her. Not from what was coming. The moment Jason watched that video, time seemed to stand still. His mind couldn't process it, but his body reacted. His breathing turned erratic, fist clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded violently inside his chest raged, boiling to a level he had never known existed within him. His teammates, Brian, Chris, Sam, the men he called brothers, the people he'd bled alongside on the football field, the very people he trusted to protect his home and family, had crossed the ultimate line. But Rebecca, his little sister, the one person he had promised to protect after their parents' death. Her betrayal cut deepest. To Jason, it wasn't just about the physical betrayal, it was the collapse of every belief he'd held. His life, his trust, his purpose, all shattered in one gut-wrenching moment. Jason's hands trembled as he scrolled past the messages. "Don't watch the video, bro. Sorry, Jason. Please talk to us. Brian didn't mean for this to happen." Every word felt like gasoline on his already raging fire. He threw his phone across the locker room, smashing it against the wall. It shattered, but the video played on repeat inside his mind. There was no way to destroy what he had. He stormed out of the locker room. His teammates saw him, but no one dared speak. His face wasn't human anymore. It was murderous. Jason walked like a man possessed. He reached home, slamming the door open. Rebecca was there, sitting on the living room floor, knees drawn to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She'd been waiting for him, hoping he'd come back soon. She'd rehearsed what she'd say, how she'd beg for forgiveness, how she'd explain that she never meant for things to spiral like this. But when she saw Jason standing at the doorway, she knew instantly this wasn't her brother anymore. His eyes were bloodshot veins. Bulging from his neck, his entire body shook with rage. For a moment, he said nothing. He simply stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger. "Jason, but please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for." Her voice shattered as Jason let out a roar. Animalistic. Raw. Terrifying. He charged forward, grabbing Rebecca by the shoulders and violently shaking her. She screamed, begging him to listen, but his mind was beyond reason. In that moment, all he saw was betrayal. "How could you?" he screamed, spittle flying from his lips. You let them do that to you. You let them into my home." Rebecca sobbed uncontrollably. "I didn't. I messed up. I'm sorry, Jason, please, please." But his fury drowned out her words. His eyes darted around the room, searching for something, anything to make this rage stop. His gaze landed on the heavy brass table lamp. Without thinking, Jason grabbed it. Rebecca's eyes widened in terror. "Jason, no, please." But it was too late. The first blow struck her shoulder. She shrieked in pain, collapsing to the floor. The second blow came harder, slamming into her ribs each strike. Was fueled by years of suppressed grief, loneliness, and now betrayal. He lost control completely. Rebecca's cries turned weaker with each hit. "Why did you do this to me?" Jason screamed, tears mixing with sweat on his face. His voice cracked, but his arms didn't stop by the time he realized what he had done. Rebecca lay motionless in a pool of blood, her body broken, her breath shallow. Her once vibrant face was swollen, bruised, unrecognizable. Her lips trembled faintly, as if trying to say something, but no words came out. Jason dropped the lamp, stepping back, horrified at the sight in front of him. He fell to his knees. "Rebecca, no, wake up, please wake up." His hands hovered over her shattered body, unsure whether to touch her or run. His mind fractured between reality and denial. His screams of anguish echoed through the silent house. For the next few minutes, Jason sat. Frozen, his brain replayed the moments again and again, but nothing made sense. He rocked back and forth like a broken child, staring blankly at the wall. Then something inside him switched. The grief was buried under a colder, darker emotion. Vengeance. If Rebecca's betrayal destroyed his heart, his teammates' betrayal burned what remained of his soul. Slowly, Jason stood up. He walked towards his bedroom. His hands moved mechanically now. He opened the drawer beside his bed, the one he hadn't touched in months, and pulled out the handgun he'd inherited from their father. He checked the magazine, fully loaded. For a moment, Jason stood there, staring at the gun. Then, his mind now clear with terrifying focus, made a decision. They will pay. He wiped his tears. His trembling stopped. His breathing slowed. Every step he took now felt deliberate, methodical. Jason knew exactly where his teammates would be, their usual hangout spot near the abandoned warehouse. At the edge of the campus. They met there after practice, away from the campus spotlight to drink, smoke, and joke around. Tonight would be no different. He left Rebecca's lifeless body on the floor without a second glance. The gun felt heavy in his hand as he walked through the campus streets. Night had fallen. Would Jason barely noticed? His face was emotionless now, cold and detached. His mind replayed images of Brian smirking, of Chris laughing, of Sam flirting. He would wipe those smiles away forever. As he approached the warehouse, he heard them. Laughter, music, casual conversation. They didn't know, they had no idea what was coming. Jason didn't hesitate. He kicked open the door. The music stopped. Their laughter died instantly. Brian stood up first, startled Jason. "Bro, what the hell?" But Jason raised the gun. "No more, bro." The first shot hit Brian square in the chest. His body jerked violently before collapsing onto the floor, eyes wide in shock, mouth still trying to form a sentence that would never come. Panic erupted. Chris ducked behind a crate, but Jason fired again. The bullet pierced Chris' side, sending him sprawling. Sam tried to run, but Jason aimed at his back and fired. One shot, then another. Blood pooled everywhere. Screams filled the air. Teammates shouting for help, crying, begging. But Jason kept shooting. His gunfire echoed through the warehouse like the sound of judgment. 4 bodies lay sprawled across the concrete floor. Within minutes, Brian, Chris, Sam, and one other who didn't even have time to scream before the bullet tore through his throat. Jason's expression didn't change. He looked at their lifeless bodies with dead eyes, as if surveying broken equipment after a failed game. His gun clicked. Empty silence. Smoke hung in the air, the smell of blood mixed with sweat and gunpowder. The surviving teammates, those who had managed to hide, stared in paralyzed horror from behind crates and walls, too afraid to move, too shocked to process. Jason dropped the empty gun. He stood there silently, breathing heavily, his body drenched in sweat and blood. And then sirens. Red and blue lights flashed outside the warehouse. Police stormed in moments later, guns drawn, screaming at Jason to get down. He didn't resist. He simply fell to his knees as the officers tackled and cuffed him. Jason whispered something repeatedly, so quietly that no one understood. Later, officers would say that as they dragged him out, they heard him muttering the same 3 words over and over. "I'm sorry, Rebecca, I'm sorry." And as they shoved him into the back of the police van, Jason Thompson, once the most respected defender on the football team, sat drenched in his victim's blood, staring blankly at the floor, trapped in the silence of his shattered world. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was taken, every wall lined with students, reporters, professors, even strangers from across town who'd heard about the case, the tragedy that had ripped through the community like wildfire. Everyone wanted to see the boy who once wore his college's football jersey with pride now. Dressed in the lifeless gray uniform of a prisoner, his wrists shackled, his face gaunt, haunted, Jason Thompson walked into the courtroom like a ghost of his former self. He didn't meet anyone's eyes. His once brooding, defiant energy was gone. He looked smaller, older, broken, his face once so confident, now sagged under the weight of sleepless nights and unbearable guilt. His hands trembled, not from fear but from a deep exhaustion that stretched beyond the physical. The families of the boys he had killed sat there too. Brian's parents, Chris's mother, sobbing silently. Sam's father, stiff, expressionless. Each of them watched Jason with a mixture of rage and incomprehension, unable to grasp how someone they had welcomed into their homes had become the monster who destroyed their sons. And in a small corner sat Rebecca's few remaining friends. Her funeral had been held days after Jason's arrest, a small gathering overshadowed by whispers of scandal and betrayal. No memorials, no grand farewells, just a simple grave marked with her name. Rebecca was gone, and Jason was responsible. As the trial began, the prosecution painted the picture clearly. Cold-blooded murder, premeditated, brutal. Jason Thompson consumed by rage. Humiliation had slaughtered his teammates, shot them down in cold blood, and battered his own sister to death. But the defense told a different story. They spoke of a boy who had lost everything before the massacre even began, a boy whose entire reality had crumbled in an instant. They showed the video. The infamous MMS as evidence of psychological trauma. The courtroom watched in horror as the clip played, short but devastating. The judge watched without expression, but inside the silent room, every person felt the weight of what Jason had witnessed. The defense argued that Jason wasn't a monster, he was a man betrayed by everyone he loved, a man driven mad by humiliation, heartbreak and rage. They called it a temporary psychotic break, begging the court for understanding, for mercy. Jason never spoke in his own defense until the final day, when the judge gave him the chance to say something before sentencing. Jason stood slowly. His knees buckled slightly, but he steadied himself. The entire courtroom leaned forward, breath held, waiting. His voice cracked from disuse. "I'm not asking for forgiveness." He paused, swallowing hard. "I don't deserve it." His voice trembled, but grew stronger. "I killed my sister. My own sister. I killed my friends, and every second since then I've thought about what I did. I think about Rebecca every night. I see her face when I close my eyes. I hear her calling my name. I wake up crying. Every time I hear a door open, I expect her to walk in a long silence. I ruined her life before I ended it. I should have protected her. She needed help and I gave her punishment. I failed her as a brother. I failed everyone." His gaze swept across the courtroom, hollow eyes meeting those of his victim's parents. "I wish you hated me. It would be easier than seeing pity in your eyes, and then softer. I wish someone had stopped me. The courtroom was silent. The judge delivered the sentence with a heavy tone. Life imprisonment without parole. Jason didn't flinch. The decision divided the community. Some believed he deserved death. Others, despite the horror, felt sympathy. Parents whispered that if they'd lost everything, like Jason, they might have broken, too. But the law had spoken. Jason was led out in shackles, not as a football star, not as a murderer, but as something worse. A man who had destroyed himself. Inside prison, Jason changed. He refused visitors. He spoke to no one. For months he didn't utter a word, eating silently, sleeping. Restlessly, guards said he often woke up screaming Rebecca's name. In the first year, Jason attempted suicide twice, once by slashing his wrists, once by hanging. Both times he was found saved and placed under suicide watch. A prison psychologist tried to help him, but Jason only said one thing during their sessions. "I should be dead." Years passed. Jason's face hardened, his eyes dull and distant. His hair grew unkempt. He aged beyond his years. The boy who once defended his teammates on the field now lived in isolation behind concrete walls, haunted by memories of blood and betrayal outside life. Moved on. The college team disbanded that season. Their coach resigned. New players joined the next year. But the shadow of the massacre lingered like a curse. Over every practice field. Students whispered about Rebecca. Her name became a cautionary tale of trust broken, of fame craved too quickly, of secrets that destroyed. Families the MS. Video, though banned by the court, resurfaced repeatedly online. Every time it did, it reopened old wounds, fueling gossip and speculation. Brian's family moved out of town. Chris's mother reportedly died from grief within 2 years. Sam's father, now a recluse, blamed himself for letting his son play football. The house where Jason and Rebecca lived was sold and demolished. A small memorial stood where the warehouse once hosted the massacre. Flowers appeared occasionally. Mostly, it remained untouched, like the community wanted to forget but couldn't. 5 years later, a journalist interviewed Jason. He looked skeletal. Frail, a shadow of the boy who once wore the college jersey. When asked why he agreed to speak, Jason replied, "I need people to remember Rebecca as a person, not as a video." He paused. "I need them to remember I loved her." The journalist asked if he regretted it. Jason broke down in tears. "I regret every second, every breath." That interview aired once, then was banned after families protested they didn't want Jason's voice heard. But some said his final words in the interview echoed far beyond the prison walls. Anger doesn't stop once it consumes you. It becomes you. And when that happens, you lose everyone, including yourself. Jason Thompson will spend the rest of his life in prison, and the town will spend the rest of its history haunted by the story of a brother, a sister, and a betrayal that ended in blood. No one won. Everyone lost. And the echoes of that massacre still linger like whispers. No one dares. Alone. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video for more true crime video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video.